This lens weighs over 3 pounds, 1,430 grams to be exact, and it has a massive 95 millimeter front filter thread. It also costs more than most professional camera bodies. And it has no optical image stabilization, not a stop. There's not a stop built into this lens itself. So you may ask yourself why. Why would Canon build this optical masterpiece, this beast of a lens that photographers dreamed about, and then leave out a feature that seems not just only important but essential for a piece of gear this heavy and expensive? Well, the answer isn't an oversight. It's a complex story of physics, finance, and philosophy. And today, I'm going to unpack the real reason behind one of the most controversial decisions in modern lens design. Hi, I'm Steve. Let's get into it. Before we get into the why, let's get on the same page about what we're talking about. What is optical image stabilization, or IS? Well, inside a stabilized lens, there's a group of glass elements that can move. Gyroscopic sensors detect the tiny, unavoidable shakes from your hands, and then they tell the electromagnets to shift that glass to counteract that motion. It's actually an elegant microscopic dance that results in a steadier image that's hitting your sensor. This is crucial for two main reasons, both in photos and video. For photographers, IS lets you shoot at a much slower speed without getting that motion blur from camera shake. Now, there's an old guideline it's called the reciprocal rule, which says basically your shutter speed should be at least 1 over your focal length. So, at 70 millimeters, you'd want to be around 1/80th of a second or faster. A good IS system can give you some extra steps, up to 3, 4, or 5 extra steps of stability. That means you can get a sharp photo shot at 70 millimeters at 1/10 of a second, which is totally a game changer in low light situations. Now look at the RF 28-70 L2. This lens weighs in at 1,430 grams. For comparison, Canon's RF workhorse, the 24-70 f2.8L IS lens, is just around 900 grams. The f2 lens is more than 50% heavier. The heavier a lens is, the more strain it puts on your arms, and you're more prone to handshake, especially over a long day of shooting. So, the very lens that seems to need stabilization the most because of its sheer mass is the one without it. Kind of a frustrating paradox. For video shooters, the omission feels even more jarring. Unless you're locked down on a tripod, lens IS is what separates smooth, usable footage from a jittery mess. For wedding videographers or anyone shooting handheld, IS is often considered non-negotiable. So, seeing it absent from a lens that offers such a beautiful f2 look for a video is, and for many, a complete deal breaker. It forces you to rely entirely on a gimbal, a tripod, or a camera body with in-body stabilization, or IBIS. And while IBIS helps, it's not always a perfect substitution. So we've established the problem here. The lack of optical IS feels like a massive oversight, but Canon doesn't make mistakes like this. This was a deliberate choice, a calculated trade-off, and the biggest reason for it is our physics and engineering. The heart and soul of this lens is the constant f2 aperture, and that single speck is what makes it a legend. To achieve an aperture that bright across a zoom range requires enormous, precisely ground pieces of glass together that much needed light. And as you increase the diameter of the glass, its volume and weight increases exponentially. Now imagine you're trying to add an image stabilization to a unit that is already massive and complex in design. An IS unit isn't just one piece of glass, it's a whole assembly of elements, motors, sensors, and all of these need to be put together in physical space and able to move around on their own. It's easy to speculate that trying to incorporate this into an RF 28-70 f2 would have led to some serious consequences. First, there's the size and weight to consider. This lens is already pushing the limits of what's practical. Adding an IS unit capable of moving such heavy glass would have almost certainly made it even bigger and heavier, and potentially pushing it past 1,500 grams and requiring an even larger barrel. It's plausible that Canon's engineers decided that the stabilized version would become so large it would be unusable for most photographers. They may have faced a choice, those choices being a huge f2 zoom with no IS or a truly monstrous f2 zoom with IS, and they chose the former. Second, there's a potential for optical compromise. The RF 28-70 f2 is famous for its sharpness, which rivals or even beats many prime lenses, even with a wide open f2. Every time you add another moving part or group of elements into an optical path, you create another variable that can potentially degrade an image quality. That's another point where softness or other aberrations could creep in. It's like Canon's primary goal was to create an optical masterpiece with such few compromises to image quality as possible. And from that perspective, adding an IS system would have been seen as a risk to that pristine image quality, and a risk they really weren't willing to take at that time. The decision wasn't just about physics. It was almost certainly a calculated business strategy. Canon didn't design this lens in a vacuum. They designed it as a part of a larger ecosystem for their RF lenses. Let's look at the other pro standard zoom, which is a 24-70 f2.8L IS USM. Now, that lens is a dependable workhorse. It's not only lighter, it's smaller, has image stabilization, starts at 24 millimeters, and it's also significantly less expensive. For most people, this is a more practical and logical purchase. By omitting IS from the f2 lens, Canon created a very clear distinction. They wanted to establish two different philosophies. The RF 24-70 f2.8L IS is the versatile, do-it-all tool for pros who need reliability and practicality. The RF 28-70 f2L, on the other hand, is a halo project. It's for the artist who puts image quality, light gathering, and that f2 depth of field above all else, and is willing to sacrifice practicality to get to it. The lack of IS isn't just a missing feature, it's a statement of a purpose. It says, I am a lens for controlled situations for users who know how to handle my demands. Now, this brings us to a critical point, the timeline. This lens was announced in 2018 along with the original EOS R, a camera that did not have in-body image stabilization or IBIS. It wasn't until 2 years later, in 2020, that Canon introduced IBIS with the EOS R5 and the R6. This made the decision to launch the lens without IS even bolder at the time. However, today, many photographers buying the premium lens pair it with the premium body like the R5 or R6, where the camera's IBIS can provide several stops of stabilization and help compensate for the lack of the lens IS. While a lens with IS working with IBIS, it's gold standard. IBIS alone has become an acceptable compromise for many users of this lens. Finally, there's that simple matter of cost. This lens is an expensive lens. Adding a robust IS system capable of stabilizing such massive glass elements would have driven the research and manufacturing cost even higher. This would have pushed the final price into an even more extreme category, shrinking an already marketing niche. By leaving IS out, Canon kept the lens within the realm of possibilities for a dedicated group of professionals and enthusiasts that are willing to pay a premium price for that f2 magic. So the decision was a complex mix of engineering limits, strategic product positioning, and cost management. It was actually a trade-off. Canon sacrificed the convenience of optical stabilization to achieve the holy grail of a constant f2.8 aperture with an incredible image quality. They bet that for the right user, the magic of the f2 would be worth the hassle. Well, what do you think? If you're a Canon shooter or you've used this type of lens, do you think they made the right call here? Is the lack of optical IS a deal breaker, or is the f2 aperture worth a compromise? Let me know down in the comments with your thoughts. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to click that bell to be notified of any newly uploaded content. Now, the story of the RF2870 f2L's missing image stabilization is really the story of its identity. It was never meant to be the lens for everyone. It wasn't designed to be the most practical or easy to use zoom. It was designed to be a statement, a benchmark for what the RF mount could do. It was built for photographers and videographers who work in controlled environments or have the gear, like a tripod, gimbal, or an IS-equipped camera, to manage its demands. For those users, the trade-off is clear and often worth it. The ability to shoot f2 across a popular focal range provides a look that no other zoom lens can offer, and delivering performance of several prime lenses in a single, albeit massive, package. For the run-and-gun filmmakers or the casual shooter, the lack of the built-in IS remains a significant hurdle, and the RF2470 f2.8 LIS is almost certainly a better choice. But the RF2870 L2 wasn't made for them. It was made for the uncompromising few who sees its limitations not as flaws, but as its necessary price of achieving a kind of optical perfection. It's not a mistake. It's a philosophy rendered in glass and in metal. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is Steve. Get out there and keep shooting.